Hello, everybody. How are y'all doing today? I am Jax James, State Policy Manager here with NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Now that I'm looking at myself, I feel very beige today, but we're going to talk about a beautiful green plant. As you guys know, every week I come and bring either new bills that have been filed or any bills that have advanced in a significant way over the last week. So in the description of today's live stream, you'll see a link to our blog today on the update that has all of the links I'm about to talk about in it. You'll also see some other helpful links there for you, but that's what we're going to start with today. There's been some really, really great updates through this week, so I'm looking forward to chatting with y'all today. If you guys don't mind, in the comments, I would love to hear where you're watching from. I am based out of Texas, and so any other fellow Texans, I know that you will definitely chime in, but tell me where y'all are at today. So the first state that we're going to highlight today is going to be out of Utah. So there's legislation, Senate Bill 195, and it expands qualifying conditions to include those who experience acute pain that they would treat with opioids. This week, the bill, Senate Bill 195, passed both the House and the Senate. And after another procedural reading, it will continue forward. So great news there out of Utah. All right, I see some of y'all are weighing in where you're from. We've got Baltimore, Pennsylvania, Fort Worth, Iowa, Mississippi. Heck yes. Welcome, guys. Washington State. Oh, I've got some stuff about Washington we'll talk about. All right, so that's what's happening in Utah. So now it's advancing to the governor's desk. So in Utah, we want to, if you live there, ask you to request the governor to sign SB 195 so that those that have pain that would treat with opioids can have access to medical cannabis. So we've got a couple bills I want to talk about in South Dakota. So first bill is going to be Senate Bill 3, and this bill establishes a regulated adult use market in South Dakota. If passed, it would allow those 21 and up to have 4 ounces of marijuana or the equivalent of marijuana products, so 8 grams of concentrate and 5 grams of oil. This bill had a hearing on Wednesday, February the 23rd, and the Senate advanced SB 3 in a vote of 18 to 17, very close, only 1 vote margin, and now it heads to the House for further consideration. So if you live in South Dakota or you know people who live in South Dakota, this is very important legislation which passed by a very narrow margin. So please encourage your friends to participate. Second bill that I want to highlight in South Dakota is Senate Bill 151A, and this is an equivalent to an expunction bill. What it would do is it would seal certain marijuana-related convictions from a person's background check. And that bill on Wednesday, February 23rd, advanced from the Senate with a 19-1 vote and now heads to a House. So this has a bunch of support, clearly 19-1. That's a great number on a vote. But we have work to do in the House. So if you live in South Dakota or know people who do, make sure that they click the link there to email their representative. I'm going to come over real quick and see if y'all have any questions before I continue forward. We've got Florida, Oklahoma. I see Kentucky. Yes, I do have some Kentucky bills that I'm going to be getting to, Mike. So thank you for chiming in there. All right, next highlighted legislation is out of Oregon. Now this is legislation that NORML is opposing. It's Senate Bill 1506, and it would increase the maximum percentage of taxes that a locality may impose on a retail sale of marijuana products from 3 to 10%. We've seen in a lot of places that taxation is kind of stifling. I made that word up. Stifling the regulated market. This bill did pass out of the Finance and Review Committee with a vote of 3-2, so a close vote margin, but that is moving forward. So if you live in Oregon and you feel some kind of way about taxes, please make sure that you participate in that action. Now, some great news coming out of New York. I don't think I've seen anyone in the comments. Literally, I come over and there's someone from New York. So here we go, New York. Legislation that seeks to secure a very smooth and timely transition to the adult use marijuana market has been signed into law. Companion bills that authorize the already licensed hemp growers to obtain temporary conditional licenses to commercially cultivate and process, full spectrum cannabis for the state's forthcoming adult use market. There's a link there where you can read more from a blog that our Deputy Director, Paul Armentano, wrote. So make sure that you read up a little bit more on what's going on in New York. So Maryland is a state that we are definitely watching closely. There's some exciting things going on in Maryland. And the first, the main exciting thing that's happening is that members of the State House of Delegates have given their approval to a pair of legalization bills. So the first bill is House Bill 1, and it would let voters decide whether to legalize cannabis possession and sales via a binding referendum question on the November ballot. Of course, state polling from October shows that Maryland residents support this by a margin of nearly 2-1. So it's very strongly supported popular legislation in Maryland. Now, the second bill is a complementary or a companion style type bill, and it's called HB 837, and it complements HB 1 by setting up a limited framework for legalization, establishing personal possession amounts, and providing for the expunction of past convictions, among other issues. Lawmakers have made several changes to the bills as it's moved through this process to comport with requests from not only NORML, but other reform organizations that are participating in the coalition there in Maryland. We are continuing to ask for some additional reforms as all of our requests have not yet been met, but this is definitely shaping up to be very strong legislation. Now, the update in Maryland is that the chamber has debated the proposals. They have rejected all of the GOP-led amendments, which mostly seem to have to do with being able to search for smell and some other amendments such as that, and they advanced this bill now to the third reading. Lawmakers have given final passage to the referendum and implementation measures with votes of 96 to 34 and 92 to 37 respectively. And so now the House is sending this pair of bills over to the Senate. So if you live in Maryland, make sure that you message your senators through our action link there so that you can support legislation to create this regulated framework for Maryland. I'm going to check real quick and see if you guys have any questions over here. I love seeing where y'all are from. Thank you for putting that in there. I don't see any questions yet, so I'm going to keep going here because we've got a ton of action happening across the country. So a southern state, Kentucky, this is very important and historic, perhaps, legislation. It's pending. It's a House and a Senate bill companion bills, House Bill 521 and Senate Bill 186, and it would legalize the possession, cultivation, and use of cannabis for those 21 and up. And it would also establish this regulatory framework for retail sales. So the legislation is called LETS, so Legalize, Expunge, Treat, and Tax Grow bill, and it creates a cannabis control board to regulate medical and adult use markets. It outlines social equity provisions for the board and for the industry at large. It provides employment protections for lawful cannabis consumers and permits individuals with prior marijuana-related misdemeanor convictions to petition the courts for expungement of their criminal records. In addition, the bill also allows adults to possess 1 ounce of marijuana in a public place and up to 12 ounces in private. You can transfer up to 1 ounce amongst adults without any remuneration and home cultivate up to 10 mature plants. If the legislation is passed, the legal sale of medical and adult use cannabis to consumers would take effect beginning July 1st of 2024. Currently in Kentucky, the possession of less than 8 ounces is classified as a misdemeanor, punishable by 45 days in jail, up to 45 days in jail, and a $250 fine. So clearly, this would be a much better framework for Kentucky. So if you live in Kentucky and you are looking to participate in a legalized, regulated adult use market, please make sure that you reach out to your legislators in both the House and the Senate on this important legislation. Now, talking about Delaware, month of February in Delaware has been just a financial budgetary month, and so you may remember from back in January me talking about HB 305. It's Delaware's freshly revised adult use legalization bill. It's been introduced into the House, and they have now in the I'm sorry, let me make sure I say this correctly. Now the bill has advanced to the House floor. So it was in committee, and it is awaiting a vote from the full chamber. It is of note, since this is a kind of a special type of session, that it requires a 60% supermajority in order to advance to the Senate. So there is a link to the toolkit so you can get caught up on what's going on in 305. There's also links to Delaware NORML because they are really doing great work up there, pushing this legislation forward. And so if you live in Delaware, make sure that you click on the link to email your legislators to ask them to vote yes on the House floor, and hopefully we will have a positive vote and send it over to the Senate. I see someone chiming in from Tennessee and Connecticut. All right. All right, we've got a few more bills that I want to make note of. So those are the bills that were, significant in their filing or in their steps forward. These are some other bills that are important and of note. So I'm going to talk about a few bills in Washington next. So there's House Bill 2122 and House Bill 2123, and that would protect consumers from untested and unregulated cannabinoid products. So if passed, these bills would expand agency regulatory authority over cannabinoids, prohibiting the sale of certain cannabinoid products except by licensed cannabis businesses. It would regulate the use of additives in cannabis products, and it would require product testing and disclosures. It would also prohibit the manufacture and sale of artificial cannabinoids. This would ensure that consumers have legal access to cannabinoid products that have been lab tested and that meet standards for quality and safety, while also preventing intoxicating products from being sold outside of the regulated adult use cannabis market. So if that is legislation that you would like to support, there's a link for you to reach out to your representative on this effort. There's also legislation that would exempt medical marijuana products from excise taxes. So Senate Bill 5004 provides a tax exemption on medical marijuana purchased by registered patients from a licensed dispensary. Patients, many of whom might be on disability or perhaps on a fixed income, should not be seen as a viable source of new tax revenue by lawmakers or the state. And the update on this bill is it was scheduled for 2 hearings this week and has subsequently now been referred to the Rules Committee for review. So make sure that if you want to ensure that medicine is not being taxed in the state of Washington, that you participate in our action alert there. All right. See any other questions yet? Jared's asking about Tennessee. I'll come back to that, Jared. South Dakota, Senate Bill 177 would expand access to the state's existing medical marijuana program by allowing qualified patients from tribal communities to purchase medicine outside of their reservation, and would also allow a tribe the right to develop the tribe's cannabis program under their own tribal law. Now, the update on this bill is that it failed with a vote of 14 to 20. So that's unfortunate in South Dakota. There's also some legislation in South Dakota that we are currently opposing. Senate Bill 166 would restrict a physician's ability to recommend the number of cannabis plants that a patient may cultivate in their home. Now, this legislation has passed the Senate unanimously and now heads to the House. So it's extremely important that you reach out to your representative regarding this legislation that we are currently opposing. There's a bill out of New York that we are also opposing. It's Assembly Bill 9292, and this would prohibit firefighters and their operational members from consuming recreational cannabis while off the job, despite its legal status in the state. And we definitely don't think that that type of discriminatory practice is acceptable. And so make sure if you live in New York that you click there and reach out to your legislator. There's several bills in Louisiana that I want to talk about. House Bill 135 and House Bill 137 would provide reciprocity for patients within the state's medical program. So 135 would prevent dispensing of medical cannabis to certified patients who are not Louisiana residents, and 137 would ensure that those individuals have immunity from prosecution for the purchase and possession of this medical cannabis. So those are extremely important protections. Reciprocity, of course, is very important. When patients are traveling, they need to be able to still have access to their medicine. Another bill that we're following in Louisiana is House Bill 125, and it would protect consumers from untested and unregulated cannabinoid products. So we want to make sure that, cannabis is not a harmful plant, but we do want to make sure that there are not any, untested, potentially harmful products that people would be purchasing on the market. So another southern state that I want to talk about is Georgia. Legislation has recently been filed, House Bill 1400, to revise and increase the number of licenses issued by the commission. Current state law allows the state low THC oil extract for medical patients. However, patients still, after 7 years, have no way to legally purchase their physician-recommended medication. So 1400 aims to improve this accessibility by making sure that the state's medical access is available by increasing or maybe even giving any state licenses. It was at 6, and this would change it to 22 licenses. Now talking about the last bill for today, Alaska has Senate Bill 207 that would shield records of low-level marijuana possession crimes from specific type of criminal history background checks. If passed, the bill would prevent the Alaskan court system from publishing on its publicly available website the court records of a criminal case with which an adult defendant was convicted of possession of 1 ounce or less. This would reduce the barriers to employment and also allow those who have low-level convictions on their record to seek better job opportunities and to continue to contribute to society. So those are very important things that we definitely support. So I'm going to come over here. I see a couple questions on things, and what I want to do is I have a spreadsheet I'm going to pull up and see if I can help find some of these for y'all. So just 1 second. All right. So first, I think that we had Jared asking about Tennessee. So I'm coming back to you. So in Tennessee, there is legislation having to do with legalization. So first of all, the first link in the description is to my blog post about all of the priority legislation that we just went over. But you'll also see a link that says, take action. It's norml.org/act. If you go to that page at the top, you will see all of our federal priorities, and then you'll see a map, and that's an interactive map. So any of you can go there and hover over your state, and it'll show you all of the legislation that you can take action on. So in Tennessee, there is legislation on legalization, medical cannabis, and then there's also referendum questions on both legalization and medical cannabis. So there are 4 action alerts that you could participate in, Jared, just to let you know. Now I see a question about North Carolina. Let me see what I can find for you. In North Carolina, there is a medical action. It was recently approved by a Senate committee. So if you want to go to that norml.org/act, those of you in North Carolina can support those medical efforts. I see Amy's asking about Indiana. Amy, last week in my update, I did a lot on Indiana. There's quite a few things moving there. I see a question about Florida. Let me come and tell you what we've got going on. Looks like quite a bit of legislation is moving in Florida, so definitely check that out. The session is coming to a close fairly quickly, so I do encourage any of these bills that you support to get on those. There's ones having to do with telehealth, decriminalization, expungement, legalization, patient protections, reciprocity, expungement fees. So quite a few good bills in Florida that you can go participate on. All right, let's see. I see someone asking about New Jersey. And in New Jersey, there is a patient protection bill that has been filed, a home cultivation bill that has been filed, and also several medical improvement bills that have been filed. So if you are concerned about the medical program in New Jersey, please make sure that you hover over your state so that you can participate in those. I'm going to check one more time to see if there's any questions about your states that I might have missed. Ryan's asking for clarification about Florida, specifically having to do with legalization. According to my spreadsheet, there is an action alert there with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bills that would have to do with legalization. So yes, absolutely, Ryan, you need to go and participate in that action alert, friend. All right, guys. Well, that's what I have for today. It looks like I was able to go over the bills that are close to being enacted, that have been advancing through their committee hearings. I also noted some newly filed bills of note and some additional things that we wanted to highlight. Of course, in the description here, you can click there so that you can go over all of the states that I covered today. But also, you can go to normal.org/act, engage in the federal alerts at the top. Then you'll see our interactive map where you can hover over your state and participate in any active bills that are going on there now. Now, not every session or not every state is in a legislative session. That was hard to say. So you may not currently have legislation moving in your state, but stay tuned. We'll make sure that we keep you updated. Also, if you would like to support NORML's mission by becoming a member or donating, you'll find those links there. And lastly, if you would like to be engaged in your state with your local chapter, there's a link there so that you can go ahead and connect with the chapter in your state so that you are boots on the ground working for this reform. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. I will be back next Friday. Same bat channel, same bat time, and we will be talking about what has happened in the last week. Of course, I'm sure lots of things will be happening today, over the weekend, and through the beginning of next week, and so I hope to come back next Friday with a lot of exciting updates. Of course, you did see that there are a few bills that we are opposing, so please make sure that we try to amend or kill those bills, and that's what I have for y'all for today. So I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and until next Friday, I will bid you adieu.